Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm here today to show you how to make my bone broth. So this is liquid gold in our house. We have been giving it to our baby since he was about 4.5 months old. That's basically his first solid, even though it's a liquid. I was giving it to him so that I can prepare his gut prior to introducing some solids, because bone broth is really good in healing our gut lining. And I had quite a colicky baby, so I knew that there was some sort of intolerances and there may have been some issues with his gut. Plus he was born via C-section, so he didn't really get that boost of microbiome that he would have had if he was born vaginally. So I wanted to make sure that his gut was ready to accept solids. So this is how I started his solid journey. So bone broth is not only for babies, it's also important for adults. I was actually consuming a lot of bone broth when I was pregnant, even prior to pregnancy. It's important because it reduces inflammation. So if you have any internal inflammation, it doesn't have to show on your body, but it could be from any intolerances or anything that is going on in your body, any heart problems, hypertension, anything that is internally off balance is normally due to linked to inflammation. So it helps reduce inflammation. It also helps detoxify the liver. Like I said earlier, it heals our gut lining. It lubricates and protects our joints. So the collagen in the bone broth that we extract from the bones helps with our joints. It also supports the elasticity of our skin. So it's quite a powerful superfood, which is why I call it liquid gold. And I will be showing you how I make it for the whole family as well as for my baby. So I am going to be making my bone broth using my Instant Pot, as it does it in a fraction of the time that it would take to do it on the stovetop. But I will tell you how to at the end how to make this with a stovetop pot. So let's start. So I am going to be using 1 whole medium red onion. I'm sauteing it using tallow, which is right here. So this is tallow that I have rendered, which is basically like beef and lamb fat that I melted and turned into tallow. And I will be adding about 4 cloves of garlic and a little bit of ginger. And then I have rosemary and basil from my garden, some coarse sea salt, and organic turmeric powder. I will also be adding some eggshells this time around. The reason I am adding eggshells is because I want to extract some additional calcium from the eggshells and make this liquid gold even more of a superfood. My bones, as you can see, were sitting in the freezer, which is why they are standing up in that form. They are pre-cooked bones. So some of them have been roasted for when we have roasted lamb, and then some were previously made into bone broth, but I felt like all of the collagen was not extracted. How I know that all the collagen is extracted is if the bones basically break when I when I squeeze them. So if the bones are still hard like this, when they come out of the bone broth process, then that means you can do a second round with those bones. So these are my ingredients for today. So we're gonna start by sauteing some onions. So I've already turned my Instant Pot on saute, and I'm going to add the tallow. Just gonna add it with the knife. So the tallow is now melting. You can use ghee or lard. Ideally, it's not good to use oils to cook. But you can, if you don't have anything else, then the best other option is avocado oil, sesame oil, or olive oil. So now I'm gonna add the onion. I saute the onions until they are translucent or almost translucent. Okay, so now that the onions are translucent, I basically add everything else. So here's our garlic and ginger. I'm gonna add the bones. The rosemary and basil. About 1 tablespoon of coarse sea salt. And about 1 teaspoon of turmeric. I'm just reusing a spoon instead of taking another one, but that's about 1/3 of a tablespoon, which is 1 teaspoon. And now we're going to add our eggshells. These are just eggshells that I saved from this morning's eggs. So they're not much, but it's still some added calcium. I soak them in water and apple cider vinegar just to make sure that they are fully clean. And I just add them in the bone broth. These will, all the bones and everything else will be extracted later anyway, so you can just throw them in as is. And then now I'm adding filtered water. So I'm going to add filtered water up to the maximum line of my Instant Pot. This is water that comes filtered from my fridge. So the amount of water will vary depending on the pot or Instant Pot that you're using. Mine was about 3.5 liters of filtered water. And lastly, I almost forgot to mention it in the beginning when I was listing out ingredients. It's also very important that we add apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar with the mother. So I'm using this one right here. So organic apple cider vinegar with the mother is what I will be using because it helps extract the collagen from the bones. You can make it without the apple cider, but it won't be as effective. You will not get as much collagen out of those bones, and that's the whole point of making the bone broth. So it's important that you add the apple cider vinegar. So about 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons is sufficient. I'm just going to add without measuring. Once you have everything in the pot, you can close the lid. Make sure to set the valve on seal and set on pressure cook for high and set it for 3 hours. So I'm counting down backwards because it's easier that way. So just make sure you set it for 3 hours. If you're using a regular stovetop to make your bone broth, you will need to cook it for at least 24 hours. 24 to 48 hours is best. Once it's cooked, you let it cool until it naturally releases, and then a few more hours so that you can handle the pot without your hands burning. And you can then filter it using a regular mesh. So I will be filtering out the bones, the eggshells that we added, and everything else. This process can get a little bit messy, so just be aware that your countertop might get a whole bunch of bone broth all over it. Once you have it filtered out, then you can pour it into mason jars. Mine came up to about 3 liters of bone broth. Again, yours will depend on the pot that you use, how much water you added, and your color might not be, the color of your bone broth might not be like this. The reason mine has a little bit of depth and color is because it was pre-marinated bones. So there's the marination, which includes the chili or berbere that I had used for the bones when I roasted them. so it gives it a darker color. You will see that there will be a layer of fat on the top, which is perfectly fine. You can drink that as well. So I'm gonna let it cool overnight in the fridge. First, I'm gonna let it cool on the countertop until it gets a little cooler because it's still hot. And then I'm gonna leave it overnight. So these are the bones that were left from this process, and you'll see that I can crush them with my hands. So this is the sign that tells you that all of the collagen and everything else that you needed to extract from these bones have been extracted. And that tells you that these bones cannot be used for a second round. Unlike previously, which is, I told you some of these bones were actually used previously, but I couldn't break them, so I knew that they had quite a bit left in them, but all of these bones are crushable. Crushing these bones can be therapeutic. It makes me feel powerful. And here is how it turned out. We're going to open it up and do the bone broth test, which is basically to show you that it is jello. I'm also gonna scoop it out so you can see, but look, upside down and shaking it and nothing is coming out. And you'll see that there's a layer of fat on top, but if you crack through that, so here it is, gelatinous collagen. So this is what ideally how you'd want your bone broth to look. That means that you've extracted everything that you could from the bones. I normally heat this up and drink it. So I will add some of the fat as well and heat it up and drink it. I'm not sure if people eat it like this. I'm sure you can. I don't see any harm in it, but I normally heat it up and drink it. And even when I give it to my baby, I heat it up and give it to him when it's like room temperature. All right, so that's basically it. I had a few people asking me for this recipe, which is why I made it. If you have any additional recipes that you would like to see, whether it's baby food or adult food, let me know and I will make you a video. I change things up when I make my bone broth. So this is the recipe that I decided to use today. Sometimes I don't add the eggshells. Sometimes I don't add the turmeric. It's always different, so do as you wish as well. You can add things, remove things. Some people add onion peels for the extra quercetin. There is quercetin in the onions and the garlic, but some people add onion peels as well. So quercetin is a bioflavonoid that is really important, especially in our current situation and the illness that we are facing, because it's antiviral and anti-inflammatory. So if you want to add orange, sorry, you can add orange peels too, but if you want to add onion peels, feel free to do so. Also, I always use grass-fed bones because I only eat grass-fed meat and I buy my meat from a local farm, so that is also where I buy my bones, but you don't have to. Ideally, it's always better to eat grass-fed, but if you don't have that option, you can also use any type of bone and make this bone broth. Please let me know if you have any questions in regards to this bone broth. If you do make this bone broth, please tag me in pictures or videos so that I can see your success. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whatever time it is where you are. And again, please like, share, and subscribe if you find this video helpful. And please share with everyone else because bone broth is super good for you and it's multifaceted. It can be used for children, for adults. It can be drank early in the morning prior to eating anything. You could drink it throughout the day like tea. You could add it in soups. So please share so that everyone is benefiting from bone broth.